Hey everybody, today we are going to be doing another Unity tutorial. In this video we're going to be working on a game over. And yeah, in the last video we did a pause menu, and all I did from last video to this video is I just changed this from saying pause menu to menus. But otherwise, yeah, in the last video we worked on creating the canvas that stores our UI elements with the pause menu. So then if we go into the game and then press escape, it's going to pause the game. Resume would unpause it. You can go to either options, enable and disable the toggle, and then yeah, you can also go to the main menu. In this video we can be working on a game over. So in this menu area I'm going to be adding a new UI panel, and I'm going to call this game over. I changed the background. I think it would work perfectly being black. I am going to disable toggle at the moment, so you can't see that. I'm going to, in the game over, I'm going to add a UI text, and this is what is going to display our game over. I'm going to zoom in, move this upwards, change the text to saying something like game, center it along both axes. For the alignment, just change the size of the box. Move it to the right or to the left. Change this to maybe being 50 or 100. Make it a little bit bigger so you can actually see it. And then I'm going to anchor it to the top. Now I'm going to rename this the same game. And I'm going to duplicate it, the text component, and I'm going to rename this to saying over, and I'm going to make the actual text say over. Then I'm going to take this game object, take this text component, I'm going to move it down, and there. So now we have it displaying game over, both anchored to the top. And now I'm going to change the color of those to being something more as if you actually like died, so maybe in just a little bit darker like that would be perfect. And then now we have a game over screen. Now what I want to happen is I want it to be, disabled, and I want it to be when you enter a trigger zone. So like when you die, I want this to enable itself, and I want it to pop up a button components that you can either continue the game or go back to the main menu. So I'm going to zoom in on the player right over here, and I'm going to set this up to where I have to enable this when you enter a certain trigger zone. So I'm going to take the ground component, and I am going to duplicate it. You can use any object. You can even just simply create a empty. I'll actually just show you it that way in case you guys don't have anything else. You can duplicate it and then just change the sprite render, or you can just create an empty, add a component being a sprite render to add a box collider. So yeah, after I added the box collider, I am going to make this bigger along the side. So I'm going to use the scale tool and just stretch it out to make it to where you can't jump out of the bounds. And I'm going to call this GameOverTrigger. Now I'm going to make the box collider be an is trigger, so then you can actually enter the trigger zone of it. Then I am going to, actually don't need this, I'm just going to remove that. Add a component off of this, call this GameOver. Remove the start method. Actually, you can also remove the update method too. And I want to make a void on trigger enter. Now, and just make it a 2D because it's a 2D game. And there we go. But you can also do it on collision enter if it was a collision object, but we want to be able to pass through it, so we're going to do it on trigger enter. And then this is where you'd put, if you entered the trigger, whatever is in that method would happen if you enter the trigger zone. So I want it to enable a game object, so I'm going to make a reference to a game object using public, so you can see it in the components and you can modify it. Game object. And I'm going to make the game object be named Game over panel. Then I'm going to make the game over panel .setActive, and then whatever you put in these parentheses, whether it's true or false, whether you want to enable it or disable it. I want it to be enabled. So now, if I save the script and go out, when it loads in the GameOver2, it will show up the GameOver panel. Now, whatever I put into this as the game object, whatever game object I put into here, is the game object that's going to be enabled when I enter the trigger zone. And the game object I want to be enabled is this GameOver. So I want to go to the panel, or the trigger, and then drag this into there. So now if I click play, and then I fall down, when I enter the trigger zone, it enables that. Now we need to set up some animations. So on the GameOver panel, I'm gonna use the animation. If you don't have that, you just have to go to Window, and then go to Animation, and then there's the Animation and Animator. Now, the Animator we're not going to really be using too much. I've already created the animations for this actually, so I'm just gonna delete these. The Animator we're not going to be really using that much, but we are going to be using it briefly. So I want to go to GameOver. I want to create an animation, and then I'm going to call this GameOver. And I already created it, so I'm just going to overwrite the previous one. Now, with an animation, you can either, like in the project, if you have like model designs, you can just straight up like drag one of those in, and it'll just change the model design, or you can do a bunch of different things. But what I'm going to be doing is recording it, and then I can change different things in the inspector, and it's going to record that. So I want the color of it to be transparent from the start, and then maybe after, I'm just going to enable this so I can actually see what's going on. And I want this to be transparent. I also want these to be transparent. So now you can't see anything. And then I want it after maybe like, maybe I'll try like 2 seconds. I might, and you can change that too if you want to. But then I'm going to change this to being visible, and then both these to be visible. So not transparent. So now if I play the animation, it'll show it like that. And I think that's pretty good, but you can take these keyframes from the top and then you can drag it around to wherever you want to make it like shorter or longer. I think this is good for me though. And then I want it a little space of time, so maybe after like 3 seconds, or after another second after that, I'm going to add an event. Now an event is where like after a certain amount of time doing an animation, you can make something happen. And what I want to happen is I want to load a certain scene. So with this, I need to go to the GameOver, and I am going to add a component, and I'm going to add a, I'm going to use the GameOver event buttons. So I'm actually just going to use the script. You can call it whatever you want to. I'm going to call it GameOverButtonEvents, and then I'm just going to erase what I have in here and then just redo it. Because, again, I already messed with this stuff. Just testing it out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, with events, you have to add a public void. And then whatever you want to name the event. I want it to load to the next scene, so I'm going to call it maybe like load event. And then open and close parentheses, open and close curly brackets. And then this is where, when the event happens, this is what's going to happen. Now, I want it to load a specific scene, so I already have the scene management tag. If you don't have that, which you probably won't if it's a new script, you just need to using UnityEngine.SceneManagement. And then down here, you want to go into the scene manager. And you want to load a scene. And then you can either do the build index value, so like integer numbers, or you can do these, like the quotation marks, and the name of the scene that you want to load. what I am going to do is load the specific scene that we're actively on, because I want it to load your scene that you're on. So I'm going to go back into the scene manager, and I'm going to get active scene. Open and close parentheses, then after that do dot build index. So with this, no matter what thing you add this event onto, or this script, it'll always load the scene that you're on. So I'm going to save that, go out, and then if I go to, when it loads, when I go to the event, it'll add me to add a function, and it should be all the way at the bottom. So if you go all the way to the bottom of your thing, there should be the load event. So now if I disable the game over, and then press play, and then fall off the map, it'll do this, and after a certain amount of time, then it will reload. And that's what we want to happen. Now, depending on your game that you want to use, that would work perfectly, but for the game that for my idea, I want to make it to where there'll be buttons that'll pop up, and then you have to press those buttons. So it'll play this animation if game over is enabled. And the way that works is in the animator, when the game over is disabled, none of these work. And there's an animator in here, and this doesn't work because the game over is disabled. But as soon as the game over is enabled, the animator works, making it to where it'll play this animation on startup as soon as the game object is enabled. But when it's disabled, it won't play the animation. And what I am going to do is make it to where it will play that animation, and then it will stay there, making it to where you have as much time as you need to press the continue or the main menu. So I am going to keep that event for now. I'm just going to change it up in a minute here. But I want to make another clip called, and I'm just going to go into here and then just rename it GO Idle, meaning Game Over Idle. And then I want to go back into the Game Over and then drag this last thing in here of both of them being visible. I'm going to control copy that, go into Game Over Idle, and then I'm going to paste it here. And after as much time as you want, because then it'll just replay the animation, so I'm just going to paste it then here. I'm going to drag this up and then make a transition to that. So now if I go into the Game Over, make this event, I can re-add it, so I'm just going to delete this event for now. So now if I fall off the map, it'll play that event, and then it'll play that animation, and then it'll just stay on this animation, because then it'll replay this idle animation of it being here. So I want to then make there be buttons that'll appear. So I need to create the buttons. So I'm going to create a UI button. I'm going to rename this saying continue. And then I'm going to make another button, but I'm just going to do this first. So I'm just going to duplicate it afterwards. I'm going to go into the scene, press F to go back to here, drag it down and to the left. I'm going to change the size of it to being smaller, maybe about like that. Position it however you want to. I'm going to rename the text in it to being continue. Then I am going to take the continue button and I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to move it to the right to about here. And then I'm going to change the text to saying main menu. And I'm going to actually change the button to be saying main menu. Now we have both of the buttons in it. And now we need to actually set up the buttons with the click event. So in Game Over, it should already have the Game Over buttons. I don't want this load event, but I'm going to change load event to saying continue. And when you press continue, I want it to still load that specific scene. I'm going to press enter and then do a public void main menu. And then open close parentheses, open close curly brackets. And now when you press the main menu button, I want it to go back into the SceneManager.LoadScene. And no matter what I want to happen, I always want it to load the main menu scene. So I'm going to do quotation marks and then say the name of the scene. Now the build index is in the build settings, and it'll show you scenes here. You can add open scene so you can drag your scene into here. You can either do the build index value, which in this case the main menu would be 2, but I'm just going to do the name of it, which is main menu, just to make it easier to read through script. So I'm going to do main menu. So now when you press the main menu button, it's going to load the main menu. I'm going to go out, and then I'm going to go to the buttons, so the continue button, I want to add an on click event, and I'm going to drag the game over panel into it because that's where the script is on. I'm going to go to the function, GameOverButtons, and then press on continue. I'm going to do the same thing for the main menu, add the on click event, drag the game over panel into here, and then change the event to being the main menu. Now, when I press those buttons, it should work, but right now I want those to be invisible. So on these, I want these to first all be disabled, so then they don't work. And then I want it to play this animation of that become visible. And then I want it to then play an animation of the buttons then becoming visible. So I'm going to add an event here, and I'm going to go to the game over, go into the GameOver events, button events. I'm going to add a public void, and I'm going to add buttons enabled with no space. Then I'm going to do the open and close parentheses, curly brackets, and then this is, I want the buttons to then be enabled. So I'm going to add a reference, and I'm going to call it, or I want it to be a game object, and then they are buttons. Then I want the buttons dot set active to be true. I'm going to save the script and go out. And I want to set it up to where the buttons will be the continue, and I want to make another reference to another button. So I want to call this continue. So continue button, and then I want to copy this, paste it, and then I want to change this to main menu. And then I want to do continue. And I want to copy this, paste it, and then change continue to main menu. There we go. So now if I save this, go out, under the game over events, when it loads, it should show both buttons. So now I want to drag and continue to this game object and drag the main menu to this, and then make this event, if I go all the way down to the bottom, be the buttons enabled. So now, when this happens, then these should be enabled, looking like this, but I want to play an event to where these will be disabled here, or not visible here. So I want the color of them to be transparent, and I also want the text inside to also be transparent. And then I want, by the end here where the event is, I want them to also be transparent. And then I want it to be by maybe 3 or maybe a second after, I want them to all be visible, so not transparent. So it should look like this. But those didn't. Oh yeah, I messed up. So I actually have to make it to where they I have to click the record button so then they're actively recording the keyframes of them not becoming visible. So I want them to both be not visible, and then be not visible here as well, to create the keyframes here. And then after 3 seconds, or after a second, then I want them to be visible. Like that. I didn't click on the continue button, that's here. want them to be visible. So now it should play like this. And then it should load the animation. Now I want to take this and I want to copy this. I want to go to the GameOver Idle. And I want to paste this. But I want to, wait, hold on. I want to go to the GameOver and I want to copy this. I want to go to the GameOver Idle and I want to delete this. And I want to paste this new one. Take this and I want to delete this and then paste this new one. But then I want to record it, the buttons being visible. The buttons and the text. On both sections. So there we go. So now it should play the animation, right? And then I need to set up the continue. Well, I want to set up the buttons to now having, well, yeah, those are already set up. So everything should be set up pretty much about now. Yeah, I hope. I don't think I missed anything. And there was the event that I should have set up. Yeah. So let's try it now. So if I maximize it, fall off and hit this trigger zone, it'll say game over and have the both buttons. If I press continue, then it'll reload the scene. If I jump off the map again and then hit the game over again, it'll do this. Then if I click main menu, it'll bring me back to the main menu when you set up your main menu scene. I just want to do one more thing real quick, and I want to change the condition to the bottom. So now they don't move to the middle, or closer to the middle, to actually anchor them. So now if I do this, they should be closer to the bottom. There we go. And yeah, so that is how to add a game over. And you just have to do the scene using, because the scene isn't set up because I didn't put the trigger down here. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope this helped you. And so yeah, thanks for joining me for this episode. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next Unity tutorial.